Perhaps I'm going to be asking you to say a couple of things, answer a couple of questions. Now, first thing, I'm going to make you work a little bit. Okay, have you used a story to teach about the environment? Please type in the chat. Yes, no, not yet. I'm thinking about it. I'd like to know something about what you're doing. Yes, even if it is very, very quickly. So, have you used a story to teach about the environment? Yeah, great, Sophia. Yeah, right. Euge, yes, Leticia, Farida. Wonderful, wonderful. Um, can you think of one children's book or young teenagers book that worked well for you? I have a number in my mind, but I would like to know. And also because I would like to learn about other titles that have been useful for you, and then I can peep. A title, a favorite title, or a one children's books or young teens books that has worked well for you. Hmm? Christmas carols. One that I remember and I particularly love, those who know me know about this book, is The Day War Came by Nicola Davis. It's a beautiful poem turned book, which is fantastic for example, teaching values. Midsummer Night's Dream. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, Anna, of course, Anna Nunes. Hello, hello. Yeah, I know that you have worked with The Day War Came, of course. It's very popular in Portugal. Okay, so um, before we look at specific activities and strategies, I would like to have a quick look at the theoretical foundation that supports using storybooks as a teaching resource. And I'm going to focus particularly on a book by Nicola Davis, one of my favorite authors, and it is the book called Last. Hmm? Last is the story of a white rhino. It's a beautiful book, a beautiful book. Okay, so just for starters, um, let's have a look. Why use this book in particular? What's the theoretical foundation that supports my choice of this particular book? And first of all, it's CLIL principles. As you know, CLIL is a dual-focused approach where content, in this case, environmental education, and language learning are integrated. And it immerses students in meaningful real-world contexts. And this helps make language acquisition more authentic and more engaging. Also, from the point of view of visual literacy and multimodal learning, picture books, and this in particular, but all picture books are fantastic. Picture books such as these are powerful tools because they combine visual and textual elements and thus they enhance understanding. And also, visuals help students decode meaning, especially when their language skills are still developing. Yes, because we can use storybooks, such as this one, for example, with uh, preteens um, and preteens who do not have a high level of English. Yes, but the pictures will help them understand, as is the case with all storybooks. Also, it provides age-appropriate scaffolding for different developmental stages. And as we know, scaffolding is essential when we are teaching students of different ages and different proficiency levels. So, for example, if you have beginners, if you have younger learners between the ages of 8 and 9, they will need some structured support to grasp new concepts and language. then they can focus on tangible concepts and simple cause-effect relationships with these visual aids. And the activities should focus on simple vocabulary, repetitive sentence structures, visual aids. When we have older learners between 12, 13, for example, these learners are more capable of more abstract thinking, and they can engage in critical discussions about complex themes. For example, in this case, animal extinction and human responsibility. And scaffolding here involves guiding them to articulate their ideas using, for example, sentence starters, graphic organizers, or structured debates. Um, So you have here some other examples with advanced learners. You can have these debate frames, translanguaging. This is also important. Allowing the use of the first language or the heritage language for expressing complex ideas. I remember when I started my teaching career, it was well, it was the time of the dinosaurs, of course, but I mean, you would burn in the linguistic hell if you dared use your language that is L1 in the classroom. Yeah. And it's so important. Fortunately, we have developed other ideas, we have developed concepts and techniques. And now we understand that sensible use of L1 is a resource in the classroom. And for example, again, for advanced students, you can do collaborative writing using Google Docs. Technology is a blessing in this sense. Okay, now another thing that I find particularly important is the use of authentic literature for language acquisition and also for environmental education. Um, okay, graded readers have developed a lot since I started teaching, but still, I always prefer to look for authentic books, authentic literature, because it's a very, very powerful tool for both language skills, teaching language skills, and in this particular case, environmental awareness. Now, what's the benefit of authentic literature? Because you may say, oh, okay, the language can be too high. Right, but it's up to us to choose. Yes. And it exposes students to natural language. Authentic texts introduce students to real world vocabulary, grammar, and expressions in context, which helps foster vocabulary development. Authentic literature exposes students to a mix of high frequency words, topic specific terms, and figurative language. They challenge students to think critically and infer meaning from context, making them active participants in the reading process. And of course, when students feel that they are invested in a narrative, they are more likely to persevere through language challenges and actively participate in discussions. Also, books like this one are written with natural language, but they remain accessible due to their use of simple text, repetition, and visual support. And this makes this sort of book ideal for EFL learners who can rely on the illustrations to help them understand the meaning while they are gradually improving their reading and vocabulary skills. Very importantly, cultural and global relevance. Authentic literature often deals with universal themes. I mentioned before The Day War Came, this one, and so many others. I have a bookcase here full of such books. And so the themes, these universal themes, are made relevant to students from diverse cultural backgrounds. And of course, the use of authentic literature goes beyond rote learning and encourages students to analyze, interpret, and respond creatively to the text and inspire creativity and critical thinking. Now, another question that can come up is, why include cross-curricular connections? It's very important. I mean, I am not a CLIL expert. I have never been. But I guess that without knowing, for most of my teaching career, I've been engaged in CLIL without knowing until the label CLIL appeared. Because I've always tried to relate the content of my classes to the real world. So why include cross-curricular connections, even if you are not a CLIL teacher? If you are not doing hard CLIL, for example. It helps students see the relevance of learning in a broader context. They begin to understand that what they learn in the classroom can be applied to the real world. English is not a subject they make me study at school. It has a relation with my life, with my everyday life. Cross-curricular lessons naturally encourage students to think critically because they require learners to make connections between different subjects and ideas. And they allow students to develop a wide range of skills simultaneously, preparing them for the demands of the modern world, which is the point of education. So, by working across disciplines, students also develop flexibility and adaptability as they learn to apply what they know in different contexts. I think that one of the most important outcomes of cross-curricular learning is that it fosters a sense of interconnectedness. This interconnected perspective is essential for preparing students to be global citizens. By understanding how different fields work together, students are better equipped to tackle complex real-world problems. And of course, storytelling is one of the most powerful ways to communicate complex issues. And this book exemplifies that perfectly. Stories allow learners to see the world through another perspective, and in this case, through the eyes of endangered animals. Also, they make, that is, this cross-curricular element makes abstract concepts relatable and memorable. So it's very easy to understand what these abstract concepts, yes, when students, and retain these abstract concepts when the students are emotionally involved in this. They practice language in meaningful ways, yes? And of course, it encourages global citizenship and responsibility. So, why do I say that LUST is an ideal resource for EFL classrooms? And mind you, I don't get any commissions for promoting the book. I mean, this is something I am passionate about, a book I love, and I want to share my love for this book with all of you. So let's have a look at what makes this particular book an excellent resource for our classroom. First of all, emotional engagement. As I said, the story elicits empathy and emotional connections, and this makes it a powerful motivator for learning. The language is accessible, it's simple, it's repetitive, it's rich. There are lots of scaffolding opportunities because we can pre-teach some critical terms using visuals Mm? And we can reinforce these terms through repetition in the story. Also, of course, there is the visual literacy support, the artwork. I'm going to show you later. The artwork is really beautiful. Mm? It's simple, but beautiful. Yes, and it helps students decode meaning without relying only on the text. Then there's the question of dual coding theory. Um, Pairing visuals with text, we know, enhances memory retention and reduces the cognitive load, especially for beginners. It touches on a global theme, topics like endangered animals, conservation, human responsibility. Uh, these topics are universally relevant. They foster global citizenship, they foster awareness, and again, makes it emotionally engaging for the students. Mm. Then there is the cross-curricular flexibility because it integrates science, social studies, ethics of conservation, global citizenship, and art. And it can be used, for example, across ages and proficiency levels, with learners between the ages of 8 and 9, teenagers of 12 and 13. This is my main focus today. And of course, there are lots of multimodal and interactive activities that we can do, and I'm going to show you in a minute. Let me check. There's a lot of activity in the chat. I hope I will be able to read everything later on. Yeah. Oh, Vanessa, you didn't know about the last. It's not a new book. It's not a new book, and I recommend it. It's so pretty, so pretty. Okay, so let's have a look at the activities that we can do with this book. Hmm? Um, for example, uh, first of all, okay, before we go into this one, use the book as a tool. Yes, use the book as a thinking tool. Uh, the cover. I mean, sometimes we forget with storybooks that the whole book is a tool. The cover, the back cover, here, whole spread. So without reading the blurb, because here everything is useful. Yes, I'm going to be showing you. So show the cover of the book. Let's see. There we are. Yeah. You show the students the cover of the book. Yes. And without looking at the blurb, uh, you might cover the title, right? And ask the children or the students what they think might happen in this book. And it's funny here because you see a city, a road, and a rhino. What is a rhino doing in the middle of a city? A rhino at large. So you ask them to look closely at the design and notice unusual things that they can see. And when you look at the book, you will see that, I don't think that you can see it here now, but the buildings, uh, all the buildings are covered in words in different languages. It's, as I said, it's a bird's eye view of a rhino walking in a gray landscape. And it's a surreal image. And maybe it's a bit difficult at first glance to decipher because the large lettering of the title hangs under the rhino, almost holding it up. And it's not until you open the back cover, like this, you see, that you see that it's actually a suspension bridge. And the rhino is walking away from the city. And there's a large sign uh, of a dollar here. There's a dollar there. and an exclamation mark on it, and a strange car with a tree sticking out of its windscreen, which is still puzzling me. So you start by showing this to the students, and I'm sure that the students will have lots of ideas for what it symbolizes once they have experienced the whole picture book. So you can ask them why the story is called Last and why a white rhino. So then after that, you can read the blurb. Yes? And the blurb goes something like that. I'm going to read a couple of sentences only. A rhino is put in a zoo in the middle of a gray city. Well, all he can do is pace back and forth. So you can read the blurb. There are two more sentences. And so ask the students if they think this is a fiction or a non-fiction book. And for example, then you go to the front matter of the book. Yeah, here. And then you ask the kids if they think what they think. Is the rhino sad? How is the rhino feeling? So why the author chose the colors. You show them the end matter. Look at the end matter. So you can ask them what they can see here. There are three questions that I love asking students when we work with visuals. And this relates to visual thinking strategies. You ask them, okay, what can you see here? What's going on? Why do you say that? What else can you see? This is an adaptation of the visual thinking strategies questions, and it gets students thinking, why do you think there is this change of color? What happens in between the front matter and the end matter? Yes? So all this is preparation for the actual reading. Now, when we come to the actual reading of the book, there are two things or three that you can do. Actually read the book. You read the book, which is the one I prefer. You can also show the video. This is you can find it on YouTube. Yeah, I'm going to just show this for you to look for it if you wish. You can show the video. You play the video and read the story aloud. Personally, I prefer to sit down with the students around me and read the book, because even if you have preteens, I think that it's better to, if it's not a very, very large class, of course, you may sit on the floor, you may have all the students or sitting on their chairs, but sitting around you and having like an around the fire reading session without the fire. So you read the book, yeah? When you have finished, you look back through the book and help the class notice, for example, the girl. There is a girl who appears every now and then. You can see her here, for example. Here. And so they can try and guess what role the girl plays in the story. Yes, what is she thinking? What is she feeling in the early pictures, and what she might be doing in the later pictures? I hope I am creating curiosity for you here, because it's worth having a look. Now, you then talk about how the rhino might feel at different points in the story. Talk about anything puzzling. For example, children might wonder what happens to the rhino's mother, and you might want to pause and talk about rhinos being hunted for their tusks. You can create, oops, what happened here? Oh, I went too fast. Okay, you can create a role on the wall. Role on the wall is a way of teaching drama-based activities that it encourages children to map out a character's emotions and reactions. So the idea here is that students analyze the context of a character's life and then construct a more well-rounded and complex understanding of the character and the motivations. So uh, this is really very, very useful. As I say, this comes from drama. And it's very useful for students who find it difficult to express themselves through speech. Yes? So by providing your students with colored pencils or sticky notes, they can create their perception of a character and show what they believe is significant in this character rather than writing it in words or saying it in front of the rest of the class. And they can use this resource to start with and build their use of written language from here. Yes? So you can print a large outline of the character in question. You may choose the girl or the rhino. And get the class to contribute one thing they think the character likes, dislikes, feels, or you can also give the students the template and they can work individually or in groups. Personally, I would do this, the first time I do this, I would do it as a class. And then the second time you use this with another story, what you can do is have the students work in groups, in small groups of 4, for example, 3, 4, and then they share with the rest of the class. Alternatively, you can ask specific questions. For example, what would the rhino say to another animal who is sad? Hmm? What does the girl think when she looks at the rhino? Because the girl visits the zoo at the very beginning. We see here, there's the girl and there's the rhino. So this kind of activity is great in a kind of drama lesson, as it provides your students with a better understanding of the character. You can also build a working wall. A working wall can have lots and lots of different appearances. You can put in words, sentences, grammar items, pictures, ideas, concepts, anything. In this case, you can create a working wall like this. You have the students looking for information about white rhinos, collecting animal words, other words that can be useful for discussion, fun facts about rhinos, types of rhinos, where they live, etc. And they can begin creating this working wall. And of course, this can be done either physically with a large sheet of paper and display it on one side of the class, or with a Padlet. That depends on what you prefer or what you know your students prefer. Then we can have a research challenge. For example, they can create a red list of endangered animals, finding more about the ones that they have in the illustrations in the book. I have put here just this picture as an illustration, but you can focus exclusively on the animals that appear in the book, talking about their natural habitat, why they are threatened. They can also focus on, depending on the country you are from, if there are animal species that are threatened, you can focus on those. For example, here in Spain, for many years, the Iberian lynx was in danger of extinction. Now it's coming back, it's breeding again, but you can choose animals that are in danger in your country. They can identify other animals in the book. And there's something that the rhino says, that there are a lot of lusts. So why does he say this? how does it make you feel to know that there are many lasts on our planet? And not just animals, because we tend to focus on the animals, but we forget about, animals and birds included, but we forget about insects. We forget about plants. For example, the monarch butterfly is badly endangered. So, what about so many lasts? Here, this is something that the rhino says. We look, we pace, we lie down and close our eyes. So why do the children think that these animals uh, are closing their eyes and this is a natural reaction? It's so rich. It's so rich. There are so many questions that you can bring to the classroom and help students think critically. Then you can also have an environmental debate. This is for older students. Yes. For example, you can bring in questions. What is the role of zoos? This is quite controversial. Mhm. Is it right to keep animals in captivity? Advantages and disadvantages. What's the point of having endangered animals in in zoos? What are the difficulties of reintroducing animals in the wild? Now, uh, one thing that I found interesting in order to make a debate work is to give students different roles they don't necessarily agree with. For example, you may decide that these students are going to represent a hunting society. They may be against hunting, but they have to defend their point of view. So that makes the debate more real because otherwise, if you find that all the students are against keeping animals in captivity, where is the debate? So assigning roles that they have to defend in spite of being against what the character in the debate supports is a good thing, a good challenge. And this is a very good technique to use in all debates when you have older students. Yes. Um, Also, well, here I have included some websites that can be useful for preparing for this sort of debate. Yes. You can give them, for example, key phrases to help them structure their arguments. And you can assign teams, a team that is for, a team that is against, or different society groups, social groups that can be involved in the environmental debate. For example, I'm thinking locally. I live in the region of Castilla León in Spain. And here we have an animal that I absolutely love, and that is the wolf. But I think I am one of the very few who loves wolves because people who breed cattle, farmers, hate wolves. So you could have a debate on protecting wolves and involving farmers, environmentalists, hunters. So it can make the debate more real and enriching, controversial also. Um, you can do digital storytelling. Yes, you can use a free digital tool, for example, StoryJumper or Canva, and create a collaborative what happens next story based on last. And students in groups can write and design a continuation of the story, imagining ways to save the endangered animals. Mm-hmm. Um, we also we can also start a conservation campaign. I think this. I know this is not something new. Yes, uh, this has been going on forever, but uh, they can create not necessarily a conservation campaign to protect the rhino, but a conservation campaign to protect a species, be it an insect species, an animal species, a plant species, that is endangered in their own country or in their own region, and create a real campaign and carry it out. It can be a long-term project, an ambitious project, but a real life thing that they can actually do and carry out in their community. Mhm. Um, Also, of course, those who know me know that poetry had to come in somewhere at some point. So, some creative challenges that you can bring to the classroom. For example, you look at the patterns on the buildings, and you ask students to use musical instruments or their voices and interpret the patterns on the buildings as music and reflect the mood of the illustration. And they can go on in the different pages of the book. Yes, you see that by the end, everything is green and beautiful. But at the beginning, everything is gray and depressing. Yeah. And it can be very sad at one point. It reminded me of Bambi's mother. So they can create a soundtrack for the story. Yes, either working with the teacher, the music teacher, or just in your own classroom, putting a soundtrack, putting music and sounds, different sounds to the story. They can write poetry, for example, haikus. If you feel a haiku is difficult, there are other poetic forms that they can use. Um, for example, Cinquain's free verse, without any particular structure, Diamante, persona poems. There are lots of possibilities, easy things that students can do. One thing, one piece of advice, if you're going to write poetry with your students, whatever the topic is, be it based on this or whatever else, please always model, always create the first poems with your students before letting them create their own poems. Um, Also, you can create a class manifesto, yes, working together as a class to create the collaborative class manifesto on behalf of these animals. And they can create drawings of each of the animals to frame their manifesto and display in a public area in their school. So these are just some ideas, yes? So thank you very much for joining today's session. Yes, I hope this talk has given you some ideas, practical strategies for using authentic literature, like Nicola Davis's last, to inspire language growth and environmental responsibility and empathy in our classrooms. As we have seen, and as many of you know, because I'm sure that most, if not all of you, work with storybooks, stories have a unique power to make complex issues accessible, memorable, and meaningful for learners of all ages. Just look at me being so excited about these children's books, this one, The Day War Came, and so many others. Through simple activities like exploring book covers, for example, or engaging in role play, building working walls, encouraging creative digital projects, we can help students connect language learning with real world concerns to foster a true sense of global citizenship. Remember, every story you share, every question that you ask, every creative challenge you set is an opportunity for the students to imagine, to express themselves, to make a difference, not only in English, but in their understanding of the world. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, I think that we have time for questions. And if you need to contact me, well, I am all over the place. You can find me. This is an easy way. Oh, some of the symbols didn't come up. Okay, this is my website. This is my email address. You can find me on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. So looking forward to continuing the conversation. I will be very happy to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you, Annie. That was wonderful. And those that book is so beautiful
Yeah.
and interesting. I think it's one, there was only one question that I've noticed in the Q&A, and it was about choosing books for students. And I actually answered it because I wanted to share the link with of the Pepelt
Oh,
website,
yes, of
which is a
course.
great resource. So
Yeah.
yesterday we had Tasha Grunbaum talking also about
Mm.
using picture books, and she was involved, I think, with Gail Ellis and with Sandy
And
Murao
with
and other
Sandy,
people
yes.
in setting up the Pepelt. And um, that's an excellent website because it suggests picture books and it gives teachers ideas and activities on how they can use those picture books in
Yeah.
the classroom. So I would recommend that. But do you have any other suggestions, or how do you choose books? Or do you just go to the bookshop and
I
look at
go,
a book and say, I love this, so I'm going
yeah,
to buy it and use it?
that's basically it. I go to the bookshops and I usually do that because, for example, here in Salamanca, it's very difficult to find those books because mm, there's only one bookshop that actually brings books in English, and they are focused on the materials that they need for the career here in the university. So, or bestsellers or things of that kind. They don't bring picture books. So, whenever I go, either to Portugal, where I go a lot, or when I go to the UK, I'm always buying books. And it's like when you buy a book for the cover, I'm just attracted to certain books. What I do is I start looking at the books and I see if I see a book on a topic that I think can be useful, not just because of the potential linguistic use we can make of it, but values, ethics, citizenship. This is always what I focus on when I choose storybooks. And also books like The Day War Came, for example, that is a kind of story, but it's actually a poem turned story. So that's the sort of material that I look for. However, what I would suggest is uh, each teacher knows their context. So um, think of the things that your students like reading. Um, Try to always find things that are not too cluttered with, for example, if you're talking about children and preteens, not much text. Because if a child opens a book and the book is covered, the pages are covered in text, they are going to be immediately put off. So you need to look at the layout, at the design of the book. Yes, of course, looking at the language and think of the possibilities of scaffolding. Normally, as I said, these books have very simple language and they are very, very accessible. You may need to explain a word or two, but they are not too difficult to understand. But that's actually that's the way I choose the books, instinct. But I would say there is Gail Illes wrote a book years ago, the Storytelling Handbook for Teachers, and the second edition of that book came out some time ago, and she offers a framework for choosing stories. And there's also a British Council handbook that she wrote.
Yes,
Here
I
it
have.
is. This book is wonderful and it focuses on stories, but you can use it all the same with storybooks. Yeah. I got the hard copy years ago. I think it was at the IATEFL conference in Birmingham where it was launched. Um, and so I got the hard copy because I also have a passion for physical books. So I recommend that resource. Yes, because there is a very useful framework. Mhm.